Hi
Okay.
there, I'm John Michael Garapi, and this is Popcorn Roulette. We are doing another interview for the Popcorn Roulette Film Festival. Today I have with me Richard Williams. Richard, your film was selected for the Popcorn Roulette Film Festival by the name of
Joyceana.
Joyceana. Or why don't you explain what Joyceana is for a second here?
Well, the short film is the story of a young woman who has recently completed her PhD and is interviewing for this very prestigious professorship at a prestigious university, kind of an Ivy League kind of university. But she's at the same time dealing with some family dynamics and kind of discovering some things about herself and her own motivations and why she's doing what she's doing. You know, a very kind of character driven piece that's hung on this kind of plot of a return to home and a job interview.
Where does the plot from Joyceana come from?
That's a good question. I mean, I was trying to think about like where did this idea generate? It's been a couple of years. I think maybe just about 2 years ago I started writing the script, and I just started with this concept of a chess board that was set up in mid game, and I don't know where that image came to me or why. I used to play chess quite a bit. I don't play it as much anymore. But I just had this image, and then I just started asking questions about, well, why would this chess set be set up in somebody's home in the middle of a game and nobody touch it? Um, it's hard to say exactly how everything generated after that, but it really this sort of this idea, this kind of intellectual, overly intellectual, kind of cold family came to mind. You know, and chess is kind of this intellectual, you know, somewhat cold kind of game. Um, so that's where it sprung from, you know, and then I just started thinking about the characters and trying to find some kind of story that, you know, drive the action a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. You have to mention. I noticed in your director's statement on Film Freeway, you have to mention William Carlos Williams and
Yes.
his quote that no ideas but in things. Like the idea in this situation would be like the chessboard is a very visual idea, and that brought you towards the movie itself, the film itself. And I was wondering if there are other things. Do you, when you're making a movie, do you think about objects and like how we're going to interplay these objects? What other objects in this movie kind of drive the way you made this film?
Yeah, it's interesting, you know, uh that it's really that line from William Carlos Williams is really like a piece of advice for poets, right, and writers, which is don't deal in the abstract. Ground your characters and their actions, their motivations in objects, in the things of daily life, right? The things that we do every day. Um, and I'm not teaching right now, but I taught creative writing for a number of years at college, and a lot of students tended to write very much in abstraction. So I'd always write that quote on the board on the very first day of class. Um, but you have to keep reminding yourself of it too, because it is easy to lapse into, you know, I just want these characters to talk about their lives and their conflicts, you know. So you have to pull back from that. So, I mean, this obviously this chess set is at the center of it, but I think the idea is it's not so much actually in sort of visual, in sort of what plays visually, but that you make sure there are things that are going on and things that are happening. There's a job, there is at stake. There's the chess that we talked about. There is uh, these objects that the wife keeps laying around that her husband that is kind of these artifacts from her dead husband, and she doesn't put away. She sets an extra place setting at the table for him. So those are the kinds of things, you know, that I think um, need to embody need to be embodied in the story, so that it's not just two people talking directly about their feelings, right? These have to be hung on other things. um, and so that's you know, but I think everybody, I still struggled with it, you know. I struggle to the film is very talky. I almost think of it as a play that was filmed, and so it's not quite as visual as maybe I would have liked, you know, or that ideally it might be. But I think it worked for what it was, you know.
I was actually curious, talking about where this movie came, this excuse me, this short film came from. Like there's a lot of like relationship with parents going on inside this film, and I was wondering how much of this is a reflection on like your own relationship with your own parents, or perhaps like you mentioned you're a teacher, like how
Yeah,
much you see parents relating to their students, like and like the pressures that goes on with
right.
our relationships with our parents. I didn't know if you wanted. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I'm happy to talk about that. In fact, this is a good opportunity in case my parents ever do watch this interview, that this is has nothing to do with them whatsoever. And I want to make that very clear to my parents and my family members. It's interesting because when I do some fiction writing as well, and I often fall back on these relationships between adult children and their parents, and the
Mm,
ways in which they were shaped by their parents early on. And, I mean, so much is about self-discovery, about figuring out why we are the way we are. Why do we want the things we want? Why do we limit ourselves in the way we limit ourselves, and trying to find an explanation for that. So much of it seems to be perhaps in the way we were raised and the people we were around when we were younger. So I think it just lends itself to that. But it doesn't, there's nothing necessarily autobiographical about it. I mean, I guess everything you do has some autobiography in it, right? You're taking pieces of your life and people pieces from their lives. But yes, but let me go on the record as saying it's not a reflection of my own family. As for my students, I do see it. I don't really think of my students as kind of embodying the kind of struggle that Jet is going through in the film, primarily because I think it does require a little bit more emotional maturity than where many of the students are. They're just kind of coming fresh out of high school. To be able to reflect back on your experiences growing up, you need a little bit of distance maybe.
right.
And a lot of what is kind of bubbling up in Jet is this relationship with her father and what it has meant to her, um, and how it has driven her. And I'm not so sure that that's something that people, in that kind of just out of high school age are quite confronting yet, because they don't have that emotional distance.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, Jet is clearly someone who is reserved and held back. She never cries. This is one of those points
Right.
that you pointed out. Yet she spends her boyfriend right now is a man by the name of Flynn who is incredibly casual. He's almost a champion how much he can just walk into a household and just hold a conversation with people who are not his class.
Right.
Like, why would a person like Jet end up with a person like Flynn? It seems like an interesting contradiction.
They're two very maybe there's something to the opposites attract idea
Mm,
there. It's interesting when you put together a film like this, particularly a short film, and Joyceana is kind of a long short film, maybe a little bit longer than it should be. But you, you you have to leave out so much about the character's backstory when it's put them together, and I know all those things as the writer and director, but the people watching aren't necessarily going to have access to what I know about these characters, right? Obviously, he's someone that's successful, and already kind of at a young age has some success in the industry. Um, he's kind of enthusiastic. He can be funny. These are kind of attractive qualities. But I think the thing that she likes the most is that he's impressed by her, and he expresses that. In fact, he's impressed by how smart she is and how capable she is, and this is something that is part of what drives her, is that need for people to be impressed by her because of what she didn't get right from her father.
right.
So he's kind of fulfilling that need, I think. There's a couple of moments in the film where she also directly looks at him to kind of rescue her from these moments where her mother is just becoming a little bit overwhelming to her, right? And he'll step in with a quick comment or something. And so she kind of depends on him for that. But I will say this is not a relationship that has legs. I mean, this is probably the last moment they're going to be spending together. It's these are two people that sort of needed each other for a while, and now they're probably going to be going their separate ways.
Mm. We're unfortunately we're running low on time. I'd
Oh,
love to sit down, have a long conversation with you, but this is meant to be a short interview. But I was wondering if
sure.
you have anything coming down the line that you're working on after settling all the stuff with Joyceana.
Yeah, I mean, I have some ideas, and I've written a few shorter scripts. In the environment that we're in now, there's not much that can be done on the production side of things. So it's kind of in planning and writing, and just having enough ideas to draw from where you find something that kind of excites you. So there's nothing specific, but certainly things that I'm working on that I'm looking forward once we get back to whatever the new normal is, right? That we might be able to
Right,
do.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it was great talking to you, Richard. The Popcorn Roulette Film Festival is going to be taking place hopefully on September 26th. There's no guarantee for that. Obviously, the world we live in, welcome to 2020. I'm still pushing for it to happen on that date, but if it doesn't happen on that day, we'll be pushing back to October, November, or whenever we feel it's safe enough to actually open our film festival. For more information, go to popcornroulette.org, and you can find out anything you need to find out there as to like this will all be resolved and settled, and when you can actually come watch these films. Thank you very much, Richard,
Oh,
for jumping on and saying hi to everybody.
thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Take care, everybody. Bye
All right.
bye.